sisterhood, which seems to be advising him right inside the White House.
It is a Twilight Zone episode, because I would hear you and others talk about the caliphate 10 years ago and just go, give me a break.
Right.
And then 8 years ago when Obama was running for office. And now it's like the Twilight Zone with his brother and his cousin funding the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Why would our government want to overthrow our ally in Egypt and put al-Qaeda light in? Why would they want to topple Assad and put al-Qaeda in? Why? What is the master plan geopolitically from your view, Michael Savage, with Russia and all of it? And then I want to tie it into the hot civil war. I get from your book, and I agree, we're in a civil war, a culture war, and it's heating up. But they're pushing this flashpoint, and I want to stop that.
We all want to stop it because nobody wins from a civil war. Look at Syria. How many years has it been going on? How many hundreds of thousands
4 years.
are dead? How many cities are in ruin? We don't want a civil war. Here's the scary part, and I hate to use the word because I'm not into childish words. One of Obama's mentors was Abraham Lincoln. Isn't that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, Abraham Lincoln was a wonderful man for some, but a monster to others. People don't even understand what Lincoln did to us. Lincoln was not a humanitarian. He was an opportunist who further divided a politically polarized country simply because he wanted to dominate the southern states economically. He was no saint. Do you know this? Very few people know this about Lincoln. And this is very important because Obama has said Lincoln is one of his mentors. Under the rights that Lincoln granted himself in the 1862 Proclamation, a stunning overreach of executive power, Abraham Lincoln violated American civil rights with impunity. He is estimated to have arrested and imprisoned some 20,000 civilians and detained them without trials. That was 20,000 in the 1860s.
Members of Congress.
Yeah, but you know that. I know that. And Obama knows that. Now, here's another one, Alex, and it's all in Stop the Coming Civil War. Lincoln kept Southern prisoners of war in internment camps under deplorable conditions. He may be on a penny, on the old Lincoln penny, but at Fort Delaware, more than 2,000 Confederate soldiers died of scurvy and dysentery in a camp plagued by filth and vermin. Confederate prisoners in the Union camp at Rock Island were reduced to eating rats, and with their clothing and rags were unable to withstand the winter cold. They were tortured by being hung by their thumbs. Now, if that's not the action of a dictator, I don't know what is. And yet, if you mention one word of this, right away they say, oh, so you're in favor of slavery. No, that's not what I said. I didn't say that at all. What I said is Lincoln is one of Obama's mentors. God knows who else is. It could be Ho Chi Minh or Mao Zedong or Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez.
Well, we know it's Saul Alinsky, and now we have the Hillary papers where she's worshiping him.
Well, you know, people change in time. Let's hope that Hillary, with all of the money that they've made, have become somewhat capitalistic and a little more greedy. It's the only thing that could save us, but I doubt it, because Leninists were always rich. I mean, they're not Marxists. People get it wrong. They say, oh, they're Marxists. No, it's not Marxism. It's Leninism. It's much different. You know, it's like a cousin, as you well know. But it's even beyond that. I don't know what it is. I sometimes think that it's not even Marxism or Leninism. It's pure, unadulterated mafia greed.
That's it. It's mafia masquerading with a pseudo-intellectual communist pantheon to fool a bunch of poor people into becoming slaves in a giant work camp.
Period. It's all about money. Do you know how much money is being made on these unaccompanied minors from Central America? Did you see that article that came out showing how much the Baptist Family Services got from the federal government?
Yeah, hundreds of millions. And each little Democratic family per group of 2 illegals gets $6,000 to $7,000 a month. So it's a giant mafia payoff.
Bingo. Look at the money, the fortunes that are being made on these children. Now, let's go to Ebola, which is wakening people up because they're scared. As I've said before, you know, this is my field, is epidemics. Microbes do not discriminate. Here's the good news, I say to my communist, liberal, hipster friends with scraggly beards. The microbes don't know you're a good liberal who love, you know, all of the good things of the world. They don't know if you're black, white, Asian, blah, 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 gay, straight. All they know is that you're a warm body and a good host. And they like to proliferate inside warm bodies that are good hosts. So when an epidemic starts to spread, it will spread. It'll go to liberals. It'll go to this one, that one. They're waking up to that. Even common sense sometimes permeates the most drug-addled brain. And perhaps, just perhaps, they'll come to understand that my message of borders, language, and culture was not just some crackpot right-wing jargon. Maybe there's a definition that has meaning. Why the hell did a nation create borders? Why did a nation define itself by borders? Let's start with the most obvious, Alex. What is a border? A border is made to keep certain people out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like having a door on your house. I mean, it's you got to have
a
it.
Cell wall. I compare it to every human cell has a cell wall, right? A membrane.
Yes.
In a plant cell is surrounded by a thick cell membrane. Well, once the integrity of the membrane is punctured, the good protoplasm oozes out and bad stuff oozes into the cell and the body gets sick and dies. That's exactly what a border was created for. Keep out the bad, protect those on this side. It's a basic premise of survival.
That's right. Dr. Savage, we got to go to break. We're going to come back. And again, he's got a Ph.D. from the University of California at Berkeley in epidemiology, nutrition sciences, and also in medical anthropology. So he knows the history of diseases. He has a Ph.D. in that, folks. So we're going to hear from a real expert historically. Black Plague, you name it, Ebola, what he thinks is going on with Ebola, and why. My big question, I want to get his take on this. Why would the government not stop the flights when everybody else is and be so obvious? If there is an epidemic here, how are they going to get away with it?
We're on the march. The empire's on the run.
Republican view. But I've got to say, trailblazing in the last 20 years are Michael Savage and Alex Jones. Michael Savage was a lot bigger than I was before this show became the phenomenon it is right now. And I, quite frankly, I was just talking to him about this during the break. I'm not in competition with him. He's not in competition with me. Kind of like he works with WorldNet Daily. I plug them every day. Or Drudge or anybody else. I just want to have a free country. I don't want to see a civil war. I've got a ranch in East Texas we've had since 1829 that we got Mexican land grant on. I just want to live in a free country and raise my 3 children, just like Michael Savage has kids and grandkids. I mean, there comes a time when you just can't go along with the system. Now, Michael and I can clearly say I've never done that, but all these other talk show hosts and all these other Republicans and Democrats and people, what Michael was just saying about something like Ebola, doesn't care what color you are or where you're from or what your sexual preference is or what race you are. The government's gone insane. Now, their plan is wreck the country like old-fashioned wreckers and go loot the ship. But most folks won't know what a wrecker is. It's not something that comes and picks your car up when it's parked in the wrong space. But that's the vulture mentality of the political class. Look at this news story right here out of KIRO-TV. CDC not taking extra Ebola precautions at SeaTac Airport. They are flying in dozens of people every few weeks. It's over 25 people that have Ebola. Someone they brought into Spain has now spread Ebola at the hospital, and people are getting it. The Ebola patient in Dallas died. They didn't even quarantine the family for days. They didn't clean the ambulance for days. They are violating the default positions. Now, that's a civil war against America. When France and England and Saudi Arabia have banned flights a month and a half ago, we don't ban them. The CDC comes out and says banning them would make it worse. That's like saying, winning the lottery would make you lose money. It's just total asinine. 2 + 2 = 5. Stop the coming civil war. My Savage Truth, Michael Savage, the new book, available now in bookstores. And, of course, on Amazon and at WorldNet Daily and everywhere else, michaelsavage.com. And I don't have stock in the book, folks. This is what I've been hammering. He hits a lot of angles I don't hits a lot of the angles we do. This is great to give people out there and say, hey, love your kids? Now's the time. And I want to get specifically into where he sees the Civil War going if we don't stop it, things we can do to turn this around. But, Dr. Savage, you were starting to get into the epidemiology of this clearly mutated incubating 21 days, able to spread longer. You've got multiple degrees in medical anthropology, so the history of diseases and their spread, degrees in nutrition sciences, degrees in medical botany, which is a medical degree. For people to understand, you're a key expert to speak on Ebola, break down Ebola, and then expand how you see things unfolding. You envisioned it decades ago. You've been very accurate with the lay of the land, totally open borders, open treason, 10 ISIS fighters crossing the border. Congressman Hunter learned from Homeland Security. Total stand down. I want the big picture, what you think the criminals at Pennsylvania Avenue are planning. But first, Ebola.
Well, I called him President Obola 2 weeks ago. I thought that cute little phrase might stick. I'm glad to see the Ebola bumper stickers in L.A. with the O in the middle, but that's not going to get us where we want to go. This is going to be possibly the lifesaver for America. There's a clamoring coming up from the people. They're screaming, what the hell are they doing? When I saw that Friedkin from CDC speaking, saying, don't worry, we're in control, I was screaming. I know where Friedkin came from. I know who put him in. Here's the part that kills me. Not one person in the medical establishment is speaking out about Ebola in the proper manner, nor about the ED68 virus from Central America, which is now raging through our schools. Think about this, Alex. You would think that several doctors, MPH, epidemiologists, docs, would say, wait a minute, we know where the virus comes from with the ED68. It's endemic in Central America. We can prove it. Just look at the DNA of the virus. No one says a word. We're living in the ex-Soviet Union in the 1950s when there was a government and then there was no medical establishment. In fact, during the 50s, there was a thing called the Lysenko affair. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
I do, yeah.
It was false science put out by the government. And if anyone said otherwise, even though scientists knew it was all bull, you know what, they were dismissed from the universities or put into the
Yeah, they were
gulag.
saying you soak the wheat in the water and it makes it grow better and all this other crazy stuff that killed tens of millions.
Okay, we now have a government scientific medical complex. Whatever the four horsewomen of the apocalypse say in the White House, the little parrots like Friedkin and Fauci at the NIH repeat like little parrots. We don't have any scientists left in this country. They're government scientists.
It's like global warming. They say no one disagrees that global warming's real. Pay Al Gore money, even though it's a total fraud on record.
Well, okay, that's one thing. We know that's just a scam for money for the grifters. But now the Ebola, this is no longer just greed. This is going to kill people. Why have they not stopped flights? As I keep saying, and this is the simplest point I can make to the doubting Thomasettes out there, African dictators and nations around the Ebola plague nations don't permit them to travel to their countries. Ipso facto, third world African dictators have more common sense than Barack Ebola. How is that possible? Why is he not being forced to ban flights? How can we keep hearing this crap about it'll cause an insurrection in Liberia? Well,
What's at its heart? Well, I mean, you know psychology. I want your take. Why are they trying to be over the top, to break our will, to just exercise raw power? Why is it so naked when it discredits them? The optics destroy them. They don't care.
I think that many of them are drugged, to be frank with you. I look at them and I watch them speak. I watch them. I look at their faces and I watch their mouths. There's a disconnect from reality.
They do look like mental patients. They are mentally ill.
Well, I wrote a book in 2005 called Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. It wasn't written in jest. Because many people say, well, why would they do this? I said, well, take this formula and plug it in. Liberalism is a mental disorder. It applies, Alex. I think they're crazy. They're drugged. They're on medication. They're like on antidepressants, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're like robots. They're robotic. Let's go back a few weeks. Remember the fence jumper at the White House who got all the way into the White House, how they lied to us about that one?
Yes.
What was that, Alex? I'm sure you covered it in detail.
It was
how is that related to what we're talking about, if at all, Alex? What was that?
What's your take on it?
I'm sorry. I think that there was an attempt by elements within this government to send the warning into the White House.
That's what I'm getting from the military and others is they really realize they're bringing the whole country down right now, and there is a major power struggle internally.
Well, I don't know if that's the reason, or some caller said, Mike, you have it backwards. This was a false flag event to permit the White House to demand a bigger security barrier around the White House,
Sure.
meaning a cordon sanitaire that's 2 blocks wide. So I kept saying, wait a minute. 2 years ago, an unarmed black woman with a baby in the back was executed by the Secret Service and the Park Police. Remember that incident?
Yeah.
She got lost. She was driving around. She wasn't anywhere near the White House, and they whacked her in the car with a fusillade of bullets with a baby in the back. Not only were they not indicted, they were given commendations for their bravery. How come she was executed and the fence jumper wasn't even attacked by a police dog? What's that about?
It does look staged.
Okay, so it's staged one way or the other. Take your pick, right? Staged to send a message saying, hey, excuse me, or to tell us he needs a bigger cordon sanitaire, sort of like, let us say, Uruguay or Paraguay with tanks on the White House lawn, maybe.
I made you digress. Get back into Ebola and how serious you think it is, and how could they try to get away